Welcome back to the Back in the Gap podcast. I'm your host, Ware, and I'm joined by my co-host, Joey and Josh. We're talking about one of the fruit of the spirits tonight on this fine evening. We'll be talking about kindness. And would either of y'all like to jump in and describe what kindness is in a more Christian context? Because there's a very different view of what kindness is compared to what the world thinks versus what Christianity says what kindness is.
Yeah, sure. I think there is a big difference there because I think a lot of times we kind of think about kindness as just like doing everything that we can to not make people upset, right? And like that's the goal of kindness. I think that's definitely a part of it, right? Like we don't want to upset people, and we shouldn't seek that out. But I think that has kind of maybe become more of the definition is like not making people upset, rather than kindness is like uplifting people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes like to uplift people, we have to maybe bring a certain part of them down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like where say you got on some destructive path of violence, you're punching people on the street. It would not be kind of me to just leave you be. I'd be like, well, I don't want to upset him, so I'm just going to let him just keep punching people in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it'd be the kind thing for me to do would be to maybe physically stop you and then like, hey, you shouldn't do this. This is wrong of you to do. And like that would upset you probably, but also it's the right thing to do. And it is kind for me to prevent you from causing harm.
Yeah, for sure.
Josh, you have anything to add to that, I guess?
Yeah, I think kindness, first and foremost, is an attitude that we have, because I think it can take a lot of different forms, aside from just like a lot of people. I think when they talk about kindness, the first thing that comes to their mind is how they talk to other people, talking to other people in a kind way, making sure that you're polite to other people. But I think it goes beyond that. I think it spurs from that original attitude of being nice to people and genuinely wanting to do good for people. But I think it goes beyond that too, of just being like seeing what you can do to help other people, having an attitude that genuinely spurs on intentions and actions that will bless other people, because it's one of the fruits of the spirits that's listed along with love, joy, peace, patience, all the other ones. And you can see the way that Jesus displayed kindness to a lot of people was the same way that he displayed grace. He would heal the sick. He would teach. He would do all these things for people that have practical application to them. He would feed them. He would do all these things for them that fulfilled a genuine need that they had, and did it out of the generosity of his heart. So I think kindness covers a broad range of different things. How you address people, the things that you do for other people. I think all of it genuinely spurs from this attitude that you get, a desire to do good for other people, I think is where it spurs from.
Yeah. I guess that kind of we've kind of covered that they are different, but like why do we think like the world thinks of kindness differently than I guess what the Bible would teach about kindness?
I think what you see a lot in Scripture, it goes beyond like how do you feel within that moment. It's a lot more just sacrificial, if that makes sense. Or a lot of times, right? Well, I'll do something kind because I feel like I'm in the right mindset to do something kind. And when you read stories within Scripture, like a lot of it's I'm gonna be kind because I know that's what I should do beyond how I may feel about it. And also sometimes the world standard is, well, if it works out for me, of like what do I get out of this type thing. That's one thing I struggled with for a while, is like I really wouldn't care to help out someone if it didn't if I didn't get something back. And kindness, it's not about that. It's not about you, is what true kindness is. And I think that's a big difference between the world standard of kindness and what kindness says within Scripture.
Yeah. I think that's definitely something that I've struggled with a lot. Is like with almost anything I do in my life is like, well, if no one knows about it, well, what's the point, you know? And I think the difference there is like, well, we know that, you know, God does know and God does see, you know, when we do sacrifice, you know, and take time out of our day to do something, use up our resources to help a situation or help a person. Whereas, you know, if there's no accountability, you know, to do it, it's a difficult choice to make, I guess, right?
Yeah. It's also like a comfort thing too, because a lot of times, like, well, because you touched on it with your opening statement of, well, I don't want to go in there because that can be like an uncomfortable type of a situation. And it's not loving, you know, or kind in this case to just let I don't know if perpetuate's the right word, like to let sin perpetuate.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah, if that makes sense?
Perpetrate.
Perpetrate. That's what I'm trying to find. Perpetrate of, like, if you just choose to do nothing about it, if you're upon a not so good just situation, like, we need to be willing, like, regardless of how you feel, regardless of how this person may feel, to like step in, because it's definitely not kind. It's the absolute opposite of that, because you're thinking more about yourself in that context.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going back to the point that you made, Joey, about, you know, what's the point if no one else is gonna see what I'm doing this thing for? It made me think of this verse. It's in Matthew chapter 6. It says, "But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you."
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely something where it kind of goes back to, you know, Josh, what you were saying about kindness having to be an attitude of how you live, right? Because we can't think about it as just like a situational, like, choice. It's like, well, I want to be a kind person. That is what God has called me to be. So no matter the circumstances, kindness ought to be my response,
For sure.
right? So I guess we've kind of talked about, like, the difference between, like, you know, when we're supposed to be kind, and we've kind of touched on, like, what isn't kind that the world may say is kind, but what is kindness? Like, we've kind of, like, talked about it having, like, an idea of it already, but we haven't really defined what kindness is. So Josh, what would you say, like, kindness is?
I feel like I defined that already. How would I want to word this?
What does Merriam-Webster have to say about this? Actually, you know, let's actually look that up. What does Merriam-Webster say? I'm actually kind of fascinated.
I'll look up the
Let's
Webster
see.
definition.
I want to see if I can find in Scripture a good definition.
Oh man, you're not gonna like this. Merriam-Webster defines kindness as the quality or state of being kind.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
Helpful.
So basically, if I feel like it, I'll be kind, is what that's saying.
I guess, but to be kind is to be of a sympathetic or helpful nature.
Okay.
Another definition of a forbearing nature, arising from or characterized by sympathy or forbearance. So sympathetic is one that pops up a lot here.
Yeah.
Right. And so this isn't a bad definition to start out with.
No.
Right? It is, you know, being able to have sympathy for others, and that should drive you to, you know, do what is going to help them in that situation.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that definition kind of covers what we were saying earlier in terms of, like, you know, if I see Ware going and punching people on the street, well, my response should be like, he's not in a good place right now. This is not good for him. He needs to be stopped. And that's being sympathetic toward him. And that's a silly extreme example, right? But obviously, you know, you can use that and have it applicable to, you know, when someone is, you know, doing something that is destructive to their life, or, you know, destructive to their relationships, it is still correct for you to step in. and it is still a kind thing. You are demonstrating kindness by stopping them and talking to them, even if that situation is going to be uncomfortable, even if that situation you may not feel kind in the moment. You're going to make somebody upset by doing that.
I feel like kindness. Sorry, were you about to say something?
No, I wasn't.
I feel like kindness in that context includes a lot of making sure that you're respectful of that person.
Yeah.
And not just kind of like being, hey, Ware, big dummy, quit punching people in the streets. Like it comes from, and like you were saying, an intention of, I want to help this person. This person is my friend. I need to make sure that they're following God to the best of their abilities. And Scripture tells us to approach such things with gentleness and respect, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I think kindness in that context includes a whole lot of patience, understanding of the person that you're dealing with, and just coming from a genuine place of respectfulness and respecting the things that are going on in this person's life.
Yeah, for sure. 'Cause, like, you're never going to reach someone who's trying to bash them over the head. Yeah, just having. I'm glad you brought that up. Having respect for someone, 'cause I think that's something that we've definitely lost. Having respect, and it's definitely helped me a lot. And it's honestly amazing. Like you look on like news, or you look at just general life stuff, and people get so heated so fast, and they don't want to just talk it out, have like a normal just conversation. And it's like, I used to be like that back in high school, where I had the mindset of, I'm being kind because I may just let you finish a statement, but I'll let you finish, but then I'll come back to kind of spite you, or where my heart wasn't. Well, let me try and learn where this person's at. It was more about me looking a type of way. I had bad ulterior motives in it. And it's like really truly listening to someone. Like, I don't have to agree with their lifestyle or anything, but it's like, it gives me background of like, okay, I don't agree with it, but I understand where you're coming from, and that also enables me to help reach them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like understand them. I was working at Brookshire's, and there was it was a guy, I won't name who this was, and he was a really good friend of mine at Brookshire's, and he was in a. Actually, I'm sorry. I was about to misspeak. He wasn't in a relationship, but he was gay, and he knew where I stood on things, and he knew that I was a Christian. And he asked me one day at work, saying, "Hey, well, what do Christians believe, in gay marriage and all that stuff?" And the conversation never got heated, or it never got disrespectful, because we both we both allowed each person to like listen, and that true kindness of, I'm gonna let you talk, and whenever I have a response, it's not about me trying to put you down or make you look dumb or anything. And again, I never agree with him in any of that, and he never really agreed with me, but it was very constructive, and it was very good, because I think, even though he didn't walk away like converting or like not want to be gay no more, it's like he still knew where I stood on things, and even though he walked away knowing that I didn't agree with him and that I don't agree with that lifestyle, like we were still friends the next day. And so I feel like we live in a culture now where it's like, if you don't agree with me to like just the fine tooth, not fine tooth comb, but if you don't agree, but if you don't agree with me to like just every little thing, then we can't be friends.
Right.
And I think that's just really dumb,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people believe that if you're on like the quote unquote correct side of the argument, or if you're morally superior in your own opinion, then you don't have to be respectful. Mm-hmm. Because if they're disagreeing with you, then that somehow makes them less of a person or something like that. And you don't have to be respectful to them in any way because they're like morally incorrect. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something that the church has definitely failed on that aspect in a lot of ways, right? Just in general, very poor job of outreach, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're open to everyone, come as you are, unless this.
Yeah.
Well, then we're not going to be able to have a respectful conversation. And I appreciate that story, Ware, because, if you had, approached that conversation without kindness, and you were disrespectful, and you were cutting that person off, like,
They would have never listened to another Christian again.
No.
Yeah.
No. They would have probably walked away from that conversation before it ended.
Yeah.
And then any other time they met someone who claimed to be a Christian, they were like, well, we're just not going to be able to talk. And so, yeah, it's absolutely important for us to be able to, remain kind when we're, talking to people who disagree with us. Because we would also hope that they are kind and respectful listening to us.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I also will say, if you get in a conversation and the opposite party is not being respectful to you, still be respectful to them. Like
Yep.
don't match them.
Right. Yeah, our standard isn't other people. Our standard is Christ, who was mocked at, who was spit on, and remained, respectful the entire time.
Yeah. And still said, Father, they know not what they do. Please forgive them.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we've kind of gotten a good understanding of like what it is to be kind. How to approach other people. Dealing with people who are unkind, dealing with people who disagree with us, and we're still called to be sympathetic to them, to see where they're at and do what we can to help them out, right? And that also extends to the small things, right? The world's definition of kindness is not entirely wrong, right? It's just missing some factors, right? It's still a kind thing to hold open the door for somebody.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right? And that's something that we're still called to do as Christians, right? Are these little things where it doesn't take much out of us to go out of our way to make someone else's life a little bit better, right?
Yep.
But also in these big things, in these big arenas, we have to be able to have uncomfortable discussions and be kind. And we have to... even when no one else is going to see us, right? We have to do the kind thing without taking any credit most of the time.
How can we get better at being kind with others? Practical things we can do. Because, Joey, you mentioned the small things. I feel like we're always so focused on like, the big things. What are the big things? Well, to do the big things, you have to have that foundation of doing the small things right.
Right.
And so, what are steps we can take to be, because I'm not perfect at this. I'm not, because there's times I do things with the wrong intentions and, all that, the things that we discuss. And so, and also, I want to say this, if you're watching this, we're not none of us here in this panel are great at this or perfect at this whatsoever. Right? We're still trying to work on this ourselves. And so what are things we can do to, like, practical steps to be more kind towards others?
That's a good question. I think that first, I think that you have to take a step back and analyze your life, right? See, am I a generally kind person, or do I just not care about the world around me and just kind of do my own thing?
Yeah.
And until you've done that, I think that it's going to be hard to improve, right? Because you need to have a baseline of where you're at. And with anything in life, I think accountability is the biggest answer, right? Mm-hmm. It can be something extremely simple of, text a friend, hey, I want to be better at being kind. Can you hold me accountable in this? And, when you find somebody, it could be as simple as once a day, you text each other, what's something kind that you did today? Working on those small things. Because if it's just you trying to figure it out by yourself, you're going to do a pretty poor job at that, right? But I think keeping a notebook or something like that, where you're writing down, things that other people have done to you that are kind, and if you're getting more kindness done to you than you're putting out into the world, well, maybe figure out how to fix that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because also through that, you're getting ideas, well, what are other people doing that you find kind? How can you do that for someone else? I don't know. Those are just some ideas that immediately come to mind. I'm sure there's better, but...
Yeah, I think also just being honest before God and just it being like, God, I'm not a kind person. Could you please change my heart on this? And I know that's like the most cliche answer to give is to, just pray about it. But it is prayer is an incredibly undervalued asset that we have. We literally have God that we can talk to, who has the power to change the intentions of our heart if he wants to, and all we have to do is ask and believe that he will, and he can. So I think that prayer is an incredibly important aspect of anything that we want to change about ourselves, whether we want to be, less angry about things or control our impulsive reactions to things, or if we want to be kinder to people. I think it's a very, very important, very, very vital, I would say, to just be honest in front of God, say, hey, this is something that I need to be better at, and I recognize that I'm not doing good at this. Could you please help me and change the intentions of my heart? And I believe that he's faithful to do that.
Yeah.
I think for me, being willing to sacrifice my time more, because I wouldn't say I'm naturally like I can plan things, but I'm not just like a big planner. But I'm more of like, oh well, here's kind of like my daily routine, and I don't want to break that routine of like, because I'm so used to using my time this way, and so many times I'll put people onto the back burner because like, oh well, I'm doing this at this time or whatever. When it's like this other thing can wait, or I can move this to a different day. I don't have to do it on this exact day at this exact time. I can sacrifice time, and I can move things around. Now, there are times in life in which that can't happen. But there's plenty of times in every Christian's life when it's like, hey, this thing can wait because this person needs help, or I need to be kind to this person. So that's one thing I need to get better at, is learning how to better just sacrifice my time.
Yeah. I think that's something that I know I struggle with a lot, right? And I think at the end of the day, it does come down to being selfish a little bit, right? We want to knock out every single thing that needs to get done so that, I can have my me time, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we get so caught up in these little things of like, I'm spending 5 minutes to help somebody out, or to, maybe I need to call somebody, encourage them, but I'm so selfish with my time that I'm not going to give that up. I think that's a good point, yeah. But Josh, on what you were saying about asking God, to make you a kinder person, one of my favorite quotes, it's from Evan Almighty, the movie about the guy who becomes Noah in the 21st century.
Interesting.
God, in the movie, portrayed by Morgan Freeman, he gives this quote, and it's applicable to a lot of things, right?
I have no idea where this is going.
Josh, the guy who plays, well, not Noah himself, but the guy who turns into Noah, it's played by Steve Carell.
Steve Carell.
I don't know who Steve Carell is.
Famous for being Michael Scott on The Office.
Oh my gosh.
You gotta go watch the movie. But he says this quote, and I'm changing the quote a little bit, but, he says, if you ask God to be kinder, is he just going to, fill you with warm feelings of kindness and all of a sudden you're this kind person? No. He's going to give you opportunities where you have to choose kindness. And that's the quote. I like the quote a lot. And I think that it's absolutely applicable. If we're going to pray to God and ask us to be a kinder person, God is just going to present us with opportunities where we still have to choose that, right?
Sure.
It's not something that God just, flips a switch. And so with anything, we do have to seek God in prayer. But then also we have to be willing to make the change.
Sure,
right?
But I do think that God can absolutely change the intentionality of your heart, because
Right.
Because he does
It's
that
both.
after salvation too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was not disagreeing with what you were saying by any means.
I got you.
I was just saying it's also something that we have to be prepared to put work into, right?
Yeah.
It is God pulling us closer, but also us going along with God. So.
I forgot about that quote. I like that quote. I thought you were about to say whenever Morgan Freeman is he grabs his spoilers.
Spoilers for Evan Almighty.
Yes, if you, it's at the end of the movie. He's teaching the whole lesson because Steve Carell. I can't remember if Steve Carell missed it at the end of the movie, or I can't remember what happened. But after they redo the whole like Noah's Ark and all that stuff, he goes, I just don't understand. He draws like arc
He draws
with
arc.
with a stick and into during goes a random act of kindness.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I thought that's what you were.
No,
about to
I was
quote.
not gonna pull that.
Because it spells arc. I remember. Okay, full disclosure. We were watching that movie for the first time. I think I saw my mom like tear up a little bit.
I love that movie. Me and my brother watched that movie a lot growing up. But no, that reminds me of something else that we could talk about for a little bit. Before we move on, is there anything else that we need to talk about with, what is kindness? I think that we've gotten a pretty good foundation and establishment there.
Yeah, I think we covered it.
No.
Okay. So,
Bruce Almighty.
no, not somebody. No. A simple, practical way to get better at kindness is something that we did growing up in student ministry.
Oh yeah.
Rack time.
Mm-hmm.
We did not call it arc time. We switched around the A and the R, but we did random acts of kindness.
I'm unfamiliar.
Josh, this may have been before you started coming to our church, because we only have done this a few times. But rack time was basically where we would split up all the students in different leaders' vehicles, and we just go around town doing random acts of kindness.
Oh, is this the one where we would put like the sticky notes on people's cars?
Right.
Okay, yeah.
We'd go get a pen and paper, write notes to people. I remember there was one time that we just we had brought like a Walmart gift card into Walmart, and we just prayed and tried to figure out who's gonna be blessed by this, and we went up and had a conversation with the person, told us who we were, and that was a witnessing opportunity for us, right?
Yeah.
Because we're able to talk about why we're doing this, but also it is something just practical for them, so they can see our heart in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that we actually care about their needs and want to spread kindness.
Yeah. We would do the sticky notes, the gift card thing, and we also we can't do it no more, but there were times we would go to either a hospital or go to a nurse home,
Right.
And we would talk to patients and pray over them.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I remember sometimes just bringing a small little gift basket. It just had some snacks.
Mm-hmm. If
And
people
going
are
into a hospital. I don't remember what department or whatever you would call it. But
yeah. If you're looking into doing this, if you're watching this video, if you go into a nursing home or hospital and y'all are allowed to do it, older people like bananas. That's what we learned.
They really do like bananas.
Also, if you're planning on doing it, call ahead.
Yes.
Yes, call ahead,
Very
please.
important.
Please do not show up to a nursing home with a box of bananas unannounced.
We
Show
learned
up with
that the
5
hard.
boxes.
We learned that the hard way one year. We straight up didn't. I think like the first time we had that idea, we showed up. We had a big car like bananas. They kicked us out.
But no, those were times that impacted me in terms of just we would do it like once every 2 months maybe.
Yeah.
It normally wasn't something planned. It was planned, but not like we knew it was happening. It was just show up one night. We're like, guys, we're gonna do some rack time tonight.
Yep.
Just go out into the community and just kind of spread kindness. We did something similar this summer. We got a big ice chest full of water and popsicles and just went out to a local park, passed stuff out, got to talk to people.
Yep.
Those are more planned ways, and those may be a little bigger than what we were talking about before in terms of just practically trying to become a more kind person. But I think those are also just easy opportunities that people have to, get out there.
For sure. Is that all we got?
Yep.
That's all I got.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Back in the Gap podcast on our talk about kindness. See y'all next week, and have a dang good day.